This happened on October 18, 2016, in Ashford, Ohio, and it all began with something people would later whisper about as the man who built dolls from nightmares. The story began with a rumor, just a faint one at first, about a strange craftsman living near the edge of town. People said his workshop lights stayed on deep into the night, glowing like a furnace behind fogged-up windows. Some claimed to hear soft tapping, almost like fingernails on wood, long after midnight. Others said the tapping sometimes paused, as if something inside was listening back. But none of that was what made the rumor spread. What made people talk, what made them afraid, was the whispered belief that his creations weren't just carved from wood or stitched from cloth. People insisted they had a pulse. Ashford wasn't a big place, just a quiet Midwest town with 2 diners, a barbershop, and a single long road that cut through woods on both sides. On cold mornings, a thin layer of fog clung to the ground like spilled milk. On warm nights, cicadas screeched loud enough to drown out everything else. But one building sat a little apart from the rest. Not isolated, just separated, like it didn't want to be part of the town. It was the old Briarwood Toy Workshop, a place that had been shut down for decades. Kids dared each other to peek through the cracked boards, but by 2016, most didn't bother. Too abandoned, too dusty, too boring. That is, until the lights came back on. Locals noticed it first around early autumn. A warm orange glow at odd hours. A parked truck that no one recognized. A faint sound of machinery humming from inside the locked building. And then there was the man. No one ever got his name. The few who saw him said he always wore thick work gloves, even while shopping at the hardware store. He never spoke unless forced to, and even then, his voice was oddly flat, like he wasn't fully adjusting to normal conversation. He moved stiffly, carrying supplies that didn't match each other: wood stains, medical-grade tubing, paintbrushes, and something that looked like wiring meant for hospital machines. People weren't sure what he was building. They just knew he didn't want anyone to know. The story would focus next on Lila Harren, a local college student who moved back home to help care for her grandmother. Lila was smart, curious, and working part-time at a nearby thrift store. She had always loved old toys, even the creepy ones that most kids refused to touch. But she wasn't naive. She had heard the rumors like everyone else. She even laughed at them at first, until the night she saw one of the dolls. It happened on her drive home, close to midnight, while she passed by the misty woods near Briarwood. She saw something small on the roadside, something propped up like a stuffed figure. It looked like an old-fashioned doll wearing a faded dress. That alone was weird, but what made her pull over was the way it sat perfectly upright, facing the road, as if placed there intentionally. She stepped out, thinking maybe a kid had dropped it. But when she got closer, her stomach tightened. The doll was about 2 feet tall, hand-stitched with delicate seams running down its arms and legs. Its face was carved from pale wood, but not smoothly, more like someone had whittled it while trembling. The eyes were made of glossy black beads, reflecting the car headlights like tiny mirrors. And its hands, the hands were too realistic, not perfect, like molded plastic, not childish, like toy hands. They were unnervingly detailed, each tiny crease carved into the wooden fingers, each nail shaped perfectly. They almost looked like miniature replicas of real hands. And the doll was warm. Not warm from sitting in the sun. Warm like something alive. Lila jerked back. Her breath caught. She didn't scream. She wasn't the screaming type, but everything inside her screamed anyway. She stumbled back toward her car, nearly falling. When she turned to look again, the doll had changed position. It was subtle, just a slight tilt of the head, but it had definitely moved. Lila drove away so fast she nearly left skid marks on the pavement. Over the next few days, she tried convincing herself it was all in her head. Lack of sleep, too many horror movies, maybe someone playing a prank. But she couldn't shake the feeling of those tiny hands or the warmth still lingering on her fingertips. Then things got worse. The thrift store where she worked had a donation drop-off area behind the building. People left bags, furniture, boxes, normal stuff. But one morning, her manager asked her to check a crate left overnight. Sitting right on top was the same doll, same dress, same carved wooden face, same unsettling hands. And this time, pinned to its chest with a sewing needle, was a small piece of paper. On it, in shaky handwriting, were the words, "It keeps getting out." Lila's blood ran cold. She didn't wait for permission. She shoved the doll into a garbage bag and threw it in the store's compactor chute. But a thick wave of dread crawled over her skin as she walked away. Something deep inside her insisted that she hadn't solved anything. That night confirmed it. She woke up at 3:12 a.m. to a faint tapping sound. At first, half asleep, she thought it was a branch hitting the window. Then the tapping grew fast and more rhythmic, like tiny knuckles. She sat up, heart pounding. The sound wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from her closet. She didn't want to move. She didn't want to breathe. But dread has a way of forcing people to do exactly the thing they don't want to do. She turned on her lamp, climbed out of bed, and stepped toward the closet. The tapping stopped instantly, but something else replaced it. A faint, shallow sound, breathing, slow, uneven, coming from behind the closet door. Lila grabbed the heavy flashlight and flung the door open. The closet was empty, except for the doll sitting neatly on the floor, legs crossed like a child waiting patiently. Its head was tilted again, and its chest was rising and falling, like it was breathing. She didn't waste another second. Lila stuffed it into a pillowcase, ran outside, and threw it into her car trunk. She drove straight to the Briarwood Workshop, the one place where all the rumors pointed. If someone built this thing, she wanted answers, and she wanted them now. The workshop loomed ahead like a dark silhouette in the fog. Its windows glowed faintly, the lights inside flickering like failing lanterns. Lila could hear machinery humming even from outside. She didn't knock. She marched right in. Inside, the air was thick with sawdust, varnish, and something else, something metallic. Tables were cluttered with tools, scraps of fabric, wires, and what looked like medical equipment. The walls were lined with shelves full of dolls in various stages of completion. Some were missing limbs. Some had only heads. Some were nothing more than fabric shells. But every single one had eyes. Dozens of eyes staring at her from every direction. Then she saw him, the man. He stood at a large table near the center of the room, his back turned, working on something. He moved slowly, carefully, like he was afraid of breaking whatever he was handling. "Why does it keep coming to me?" Lila demanded, her voice trembling. "What did you put inside that thing?" The man froze. He didn't turn around at first. After several seconds, he spoke in that strange monotone voice. "I didn't choose it." Lila stepped closer. "What do you mean you didn't choose it?" The man finally turned. His face was tired, almost hollow. His eyes looked sunken from sleepless nights. And on the table behind him was another doll unfinished, wires spilling out of its chest like veins. "I try to make them empty," he said softly. "Just toys. Just wood and cloth. But something keeps filling them." Lila swallowed hard. "Something like what?" He shook his head. "I don't know. A presence. A pull. It's been happening since I reopened this place. The workshop. It doesn't want to stay empty." Lila's voice cracked. "Why did one of them come to me?" The man hesitated, because it's attached. Sometimes they pick someone. They leave. They wander. They come back. They try to return to the person who gave them attention. I never gave it attention, Lila snapped. You stopped, he whispered. That's enough. A chill slid down her spine. Then the man looked past her toward the workshop entrance, and his expression changed. Fear. Real, raw fear. It followed you, he whispered. Lila spun around. The doll she had thrown in the trunk was standing on the floor near the doorway, its tiny head tilted up at her. Its wooden fingers twitched. The man backed away. Don't move. They react to panic. But Lila wasn't listening. She was staring at the doll's chest. It wasn't just rising and falling anymore. It was pulsing rhythmic and alive. She whispered, "What's inside it?" The man shook his head violently. You don't want to know. The doll took a small step forward. Not a stumble. Not a fall. A deliberate step. Make it stop, Lila begged. I can't, the man said. Once they choose someone, he didn't finish the sentence, because the doll suddenly sprinted. Its tiny feet pattered against the wood floor like rapid tapping. Lila screamed and stumbled backward, knocking over a table of tools. The man grabbed a heavy cloth and tried to throw it over the creature, but the doll moved faster than either of them expected, darting up a shelf, climbing like a spider, knocking over jars and parts. Finally, it leapt, straight toward Lila. She ducked, and the doll hit the wall with a thud. It didn't fall. It clung there, wooden fingers digging into the plaster. Its tiny bead eyes glinted in the dim light. The man grabbed Lila's arm. We need to get out, now. They ran toward the exit, but the door slammed shut before they reached it. Lila screamed and pulled at the handle, but it didn't budge. Behind them, the doll crawled slowly across the wall, head twitching in tiny, unnatural jerks. The workshop lights flickered. Machinery whirred on by itself. All around the room, dozens of unfinished dolls began twitching, heads turning, limbs shifting, eyes blinking. The man shouted over the noise. The workshop wakes them up. It amplifies whatever's inside them. What is inside them? Lila cried again. He finally answered. It's the nightmares. Lila stared at him, horrified. That's not possible. These dolls aren't built from imagination, he said. They're built from fear. Every fear that people hide, every nightmare that lingers after waking. This place draws them in, breathes them into the dolls, gives them form. She shook her head. Why me? Why that one? The man's expression softened. Because something in you is scared. Something deep. Something calling out. Lila's heart hammered in her chest. She didn't want to admit it, but part of her knew he was right. And the doll knew it too. It dropped from the wall with a soft thud and began crawling faster and faster across the floor. The man shoved Lila behind him, grabbing the longest tool he could find, some kind of metal rod. But the doll dodged every strike, scuttling like an insect. Finally, the man swung too wide, lost his balance, and stumbled. The doll darted straight for his throat. Lila screamed pure instinct, pure terror. She grabbed a can of varnish from the table and hurled it as hard as she could. It hit the doll dead on, knocking it aside. The doll screeched. Not like a toy. Not like wood. Like something alive. The man gasped. The furnace, get it to the furnace. Lila saw it. A large industrial furnace on the far side of the workshop, its metal hatch open, flames glowing inside. She and the man charged forward, but the doll lunged again, clawing at their legs, its wooden fingers tearing through fabric. Lila kicked it away, grabbed a heavy tool case, and slammed it over the creature. The man dropped a toolbox on top, trapping it beneath the weight. The furnace hissed, flames crackling. They lifted the tool case together. The doll wriggled free, but the man grabbed it with his gloved hands, finally using strength he had held back for fear of breaking it, and hurled it into the flames. The doll hit the fire and convulsed violently. Its bead eyes melted first. Its wooden face cracked, and just before it collapsed into nothing, it made one final sound, a heartbeat, slow, then gone. Silence filled the workshop. The other dolls stopped twitching. Machinery shut down. The lights steadied. Lila collapsed to her knees, shaking. The man leaned against the furnace, exhausted. "It's over," he whispered. But Lila wasn't so sure. She looked around the workshop at the dozens of unfinished dolls, dozens of tiny wooden chests. One by one, she realized some of them were rising and falling. Just slightly. Just enough to mean one thing. "It's not over," she whispered. The man followed her gaze, and his expression fell. "No," he said softly. "It's never over."